And in fact, the usefulness has been addressed so that the government now makes sure security is taken over by government and balancing of those NPRs should be done.
During the meeting held at Nairobi's Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, Matiang'i appealed to the leaders to avoid making inflammatory statements that could fuel violence and worsen the situation in the region. Ben Chumba, reporting for Channel 1 News.
And now on matters of health, the National Nursing Association of Kenya is cautioning that the country may suffer irreversible consequences owing to the prolonged strike by the nurses across the country. The association says the work boycott is leaving devastating impact on Kenyans who rely on the public health facilities and now wants both parties to return to the negotiation table for a meaningful dialogue. Purity Musea with more details.
For 6 weeks, nurses have remained off duty following a strike that began on December 7 last year, with the medics decrying lack of protection as they lead the fight against the deadly COVID-19 disease. Services in most public hospitals remain paralyzed, with patients left to suffer. The health workers have maintained no return to work agreement, no work. In Mombasa County, the striking medics held demonstrations at the county government's offices to seek audience with the county boss. The medics, who have been on strike for 11 weeks, say their working environment is unfavorable. Led by the Mombasa Branch Nurses Union Secretary General Peter Maroko, the nurses want, among other things, remittance of their statutory deductions, payment of risk allowances and promotion to officers who have been in job stagnation for years.
They have been able to address doctors' demands and they have left us out. We are saying this now from Mombasa County, and especially to the county administration, including our governor, that the leadership the governor provided to address the issues of doctors should be trickled down to other cadres.
The Council of Governors has declined to sign the agreement, terming the demands unrealistic. The National Nursing Association of Kenya is accusing the governors of politicizing the nurses' welfare.
Consequently, the COG is adamant not to sign the return to work formula collectively agreed upon. This is sabotage to the conciliation process as ordered by the Labour Court and only escalates resentment from the striking health workers.
They want both parties to relent on their hard stance and get back to the negotiation table for a meaningful dialogue. The nurses are now challenging the government to stand up for them and address their grievances just the way they did to the country when it first reported the first case of COVID-19 in March last year. Purity Museo, Channel 1 News, Nairobi.
In other news, the Judicial Service Commission has commenced the process of recruiting the country's next Chief Justice to succeed David Maraga, who has retired. Acting Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu, in a Gazette notice published on January 18th, declared the office vacant, setting the stage for interested applicants to apply for the job.
8 days after the exit of Justice David Maraga as Chief Justice, the Judicial Service Commission has kicked off the process of filling the position, asking interested candidates to submit their application via the Commission's job portal. Those interested should hold a law degree from a recognized university or be an advocate of the High Court of Kenya or possesses an equivalent qualification in a common law jurisdiction. In addition, one should have at least 15 years experience as a Superior Court judge or as a distinguished academic, judicial officer, legal practitioner, or such experience in other relevant legal fields. The applicants should also have a high moral character, integrity, and impartiality, meet the requirement of Chapter 6 of the Constitution on Leadership and Integrity. Further, the applicants should demonstrate a high degree of professional competence, communication skills, fairness, good temperament, good judgment, wide breadth of both legal and life experience, and demonstrable commitment to public and community service. If successful, the office holder will serve for a maximum of 10 years or retire on attaining the age of 70 years, with the option of an early retirement upon attaining the age of 65 years in accordance with Article 167 of the Constitution. Suleiman Yeri, Channel 1 News.
President Uhuru Kenyatta has reiterated Kenya's determination to conclude ongoing negotiations with the United States of America and sign a free trade agreement. President Kenyatta gave the assurance Tuesday afternoon when he bade farewell to outgoing U.S. Ambassador to Kenya, Karl Makata, who paid him a courtesy visit at State House, Nairobi.
President Uhuru Kenyatta says a free trade agreement will build on the successes achieved under the African Growth and Opportunity Act (AGOA) by ushering in better and bigger trade opportunities and prospects for Kenya. He further said Kenya and the U.S. launched trade negotiations on 8 July 2020 with the aim of crafting a comprehensive FTA that will serve as a model for similar pacts across Africa. President Kenyatta thanked the U.S. government for the support Kenya continues to receive in the security sector, especially the fight against terrorism and the response against COVID-19. Outgoing U.S. envoy Karl Makata commended President Kenyatta and the people of Kenya for making his 2-year tour of duty in the country successful.
Now, Nairobi and Nakuru counties will get the lion's share of revenue after the Commission of Revenue Allocation released guidelines for equitable sharing of revenue between the national and county governments for the financial year 2021-2022. CRE recommends that out of the projected shareable revenue of 1.813 trillion shillings and the projected road maintenance levy fund of 65.13 billion, the national government be allocated 1.443 trillion shillings and all county governments share 370 billion shillings.
In the financial year 2021-2022, all counties will enjoy a marginal increase of their county equitable share from the national government according to recommendations by the Commission on Revenue Allocation. Nairobi will receive the biggest allocation of 19.16 billion shillings, followed by Nakuru County with 12.926 billion shillings. Lamu and Tharaka Nithi counties will get the least allocation of 3.091 and 4.269 billion shillings respectively. The allocation of 370 billion shillings to county governments constitutes 316.5 billion shillings as baseline equitable share allocation. Unconditional allocation of 17.02 billion shillings to be shared by all counties which were previously allocated as conditional grants for health, roads and education, and a transfer of 36.48 billion shillings to counties from ministries, departments and agencies in the national government for performance of concurrent functions in the area of health, crop development, livestock, fisheries, water, irrigation and sanitation. The submission was delayed by 15 days to enable the CRA to build consensus with Parliament, the Council of Governors and the National Treasury. For Channel 1 News, I'm Ben Troinjue.
On matters education, public schools in the country lack capacity to ensure compliance to COVID-19 prevention measures as required by the Ministry of Health. According to the Council of Governors, there is need for adequate support and constant surveillance to facilitate safety of learners. According to COG Education Committee Chair Mutahi Kahiga, young learners are at more risk of infection, especially if left to their own devices. At the same time, United Nations Children's Fund representative Maniza Zaman called on members of the Fourth Estate to highlight violations on the rights of children. They spoke during the monthly Kenya's Editors Guild Press Club luncheon in Nairobi.
Children, despite them being 5-year-old and 6-year-old, because we are joining Standard 1 at 7, we are expected to produce about 1.5 million child-friendly masks. This one is not friendly to the child because it's purely made for an adult. We are meant to give them. Our teachers must go further. I know, I heard a story that On the day they opened school, one child came home with 6 masks, 6 different masks, and you understand what it means. As we speak, ladies and gentlemen, I would want you to know and think about some 4-year-olds who are due to join ECD this year, but cannot join because there is no room. We were not able to check out standard 8 and the pre-primary. So we have the baby class, the pre-primary, and at home we have 4-year-olds who are supposed to be in school but are at home, mark timing, waiting for these ones to clear that they may come. It's a big challenge.
I think perfect, of course it's not perfect, but it's not perfect in many parts of the world. And yes, there is a role for the media to illustrate what more can be done. But there's also a role for the media to illustrate when things go right and how certain schools and certain communities are coming together to support the proper reopening of schools. So I think all in all, if we consider the overall impact of school reopening on children's rights, it's very clear that the risks to children of being out of school are much higher than the risks they encounter in schools.
Well, that brings us to a short break here on Channel 1 News Hour. Don't go too far. We'll be right back.
Enda pale kwa Palume. Wakenya. Kari ndio hii. Oh, sorry, kifungu ndio hii kari. Ni furaha ile niko nayo. Msichali keti. Wacha tupeane mali ya wenyewe.
Ni vizuri tupe watu vitu zao.
Uchukue mali yako. Wacha uchukue mali yako. Hiyo ndio shamra.
Hiyo ndio shamra ya quick bid.
Umeona? Umeamini?
Nimeamini kabisa.
Hii inaitwa nini?
Hii inaitwa kifungu.
Na hii inaitwa nini?
Toyota Probo.
Toyota Probo. Mpatie kifungu hiyo original.
Shika ingine. Ndio ya kuendesha.
Onesha.
Na wewe unaitwa nani?
Naitwa Steven.
Steven nani?
Kahuho.
Nakwambia. Uliwekelea bid ya ngapi, brother?
1772 peke yake.
We. Na ndio amejishindia Pro Box. Sasa hii Pro Box inakusaidia aje?
Itakuwa inanisaidia kazi yangu ya kuuza matunda.
Unaambia je watu wa kwenye nyumbani ambao watakuona na hii?
Wote wacheze na quick bid. Ukweli.
Ni ukweli.
Kabisa.
Sasa tufanyie vizuri. Ingia upate mizigo yako bana. Ingia utoshee ukae usikie. Inakutosha sawa? Sisi tulikwambia ni aje? Bidhaa bora kwenye bei ya chini. Bidhaa bora kwenye bei ya chini.
Jiunga na Quick Bid ni rahisi. Enda kwenye M-Pesa, bonyeza paybill kisha weka business number 4032353. Kwenye account weka kodi ya bidhaa unayotaka na bid yako ya chini zaidi. Kwa mfano TV 16. Kisha weka shilingi 20 tu kama idadi yako. Weka bid yako pia kwenye www.quickbid.co.ke. Kumbuka, bid ya chini zaidi ya kipekee ndio hununua. Quick Bid, bidhaa bora kwa bei ya chini.
Get ready for a 3 weeks Africa Football Feast as the new year kicks off with the 6th edition of the African Nations Championship in Cameroon. From the 16th of January to the 7th of February 2021, 16 teams from the continent will be spread across 3 cities as the best players from domestic leagues showcase their talents live on KBC Channel 1. Let's support our own.
Welcome back. Moving on, a section of members of parliament from Western region have taken issue with Ford Kenya party leader Moses Wetangula, whom they accuse of being a lone ranger in running the affairs of the party. The legislators who are allied to the recently unveiled United Democratic Alliance further accuse Wetangula of favoritism and suppressing dissent opinions.
While addressing the electorate after the UDA candidate for the forthcoming Kabuchai by-election, Evans Kaikai, presented his papers to the IEBC, the leaders led by Kimilili Member of Parliament Didmas Baraza blasted Ford Kenya Party leader Moses Wetangula for what they termed as politics of deceit and blackmail.
Tumesikia wenzetu wakisema kwamba ukipigia kura Kakai utakuwa unakata miguu ya Moses Wetangula. Ukipigia kura Kakai na wache kupigia kura mgombea wa kiti cha Ford Kenya, tutakuwa unadhalilisha chama cha Ford Kenya.
Huyu mwenzetu wa hiyo chama ya Ford Kenya ni mtu sasa amezingirwa. Hata akipita kura hakuna chake chochote atakachofanya kwa hiari yake yeye mwenyewe. Atakuwa anaongozwa na party leader wake.
The leaders who used the opportunity to drum up support for the UDA candidate further claimed that the former holder of the seat, the late James Lusweti, had ditched the Wetangula-led Ford Kenya for the Deputy President William Ruto's allied faction.
Sisi kama wabunge kutoka kaunti ya Bungoma tuko majority na tunatembea na Kakai. Mheshimiwa Wetangula anatembea peke yake. Kwa sisi wabunge wote, hata wala wachache wala wamebaki Ford Kenya, hawako na Wetangula.
The by-election for the Kabuchai constituency has been slated to take place on March 4th this year. In another development, 15 candidates have been cleared to battle it out in the March 4th Matungu by-election. The 15 include the son of the immediate former MP, the late Justice Murunga, and his widow, Christabel Murunga. Former National Government Constituency Development Fund manager Athman Wagara is also in the race to capture the seat that was left vacant following the death of Justice Murunga on November last year.
We have no problem with any party. We want a fair contest. That is what we are yearning for, so that we move forward as a county, as the people of Matungu.
We have made the right decision, and I think for once, let's have a campaign based on issues, based on principles.
Reporting for Channel 1 News, I'm Wycliffe Okech.
Moving on, civil society groups under the coalition Africa Elections of Watch are calling for urgent regional and international mediation in Uganda over what they term as widespread violations of human rights and deliberate disregard of the electoral process. The coalition, which is demanding for the immediate and unconditional release of the detained 223 people, among them opposition leader Robert Chagulanyi, say the situation in Uganda amounts to suppression of human rights freedoms that should not be tolerated. The coalition was categorical that human rights bodies should raise their voices against such acts to discourage other regional leaders from muzzling the voice of the people.
The outcome of this election would surmise that most Ugandans chose Museveni to continue leading the nation. But if that were the case, wouldn't these same Ugandans be on the streets and everywhere else celebrating this win? Would there be need for the military to restrain them? Or isn't that the reason for the massive military deployment and internet shutdown?
We anticipate that the numbers are much higher than this because they are getting very, very, very many incidences of many people who cannot be traced in their ordinary areas of residence and business.
Report of people in parts of Uganda protesting the result cannot be ignored. If the people felt that they could be heard, they would not resort to protest. And since Museveni has refused to listen to them, it would be tragic for the world to side with him at the expense of the people of Uganda.
World leaders must now look beyond powerful national, political, diplomatic, vested interests and take action against Ugandan authorities to ensure justice for Ugandans. To the governments of Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, South Sudan, Democratic Republic of Congo, we urge you to keep your borders open for any persons in Uganda who will be seeking asylum during this period.
Now let's talk business. The government says 35% of all buildings in Kenya are unfit for habitation and will soon be demolished. Public Works Principal Secretary Gordon Kihalangwe blames poor workmanship as a result of budget constraints in the construction sector, as most investors lack adequate capital to put up quality structures. Details of this story and others are in our business wrap.
The country has in the recent past witnessed structural failures that have claimed several lives as a number of buildings under construction collapse. Though the new Construction Act gives the National Construction Authority powers to demolish faulty buildings, experts say some developers lack finances to complete their initial designs, making adjustments midway, therefore compromising the stability of the buildings.
So this new technology, if certain parameters are not addressed, for example, if you are doing a construction using the EPS and a contractor does not have the adequate money to ensure that that is done within a time frame, if it stays for a long time, it will just go back to. So it will actually not be less expensive.
They have a lot of challenges because of lack of resources in terms of finance, in terms of access to technology, the skills, the access to the markets, both local and international, and also the issue of access to the market information. Also, there is a problem where there is lack of economies of scale and scope. They have higher transaction costs relative to the larger enterprise.
Elsewhere, small and medium enterprises in the country are set to benefit from a warehouse project under construction by Dot International Limited in Mavoko, Machakos County. The company plans to construct 36 commercial warehouses that will have 3-phase power connection, common area generator, ample common area for loading and offloading, ample vehicle parking.
They are supporting Big Four. You see, Big Four is also real estate. In real estate, there is two divisions. One is affordable houses and also the Build Kenya. Whatever we want to import, we try to reduce as much as possible and we produce locally. So we are also providing them infrastructures so they can produce locally as much as possible.
Planning to complete the project in next year, May, June, somewhere there. It's a 18 months project and we are selling at 19.5 million, which after the completion the value might shoot up to 25 million, depending on the market how is taking up.
Meanwhile, it is a big reprieve for Mombasa and Nairobi residents who will now have an alternative electricity supply via the Isinya substation. The new alternative power transmission line would mainly be used in evacuating geothermal power from Olkaria.
The station is running. It's taking a lot of megawatts. Apart from now taking the geothermal power from Isinya to Mombasa, it is also one of the stations that is now evacuating the geothermal power from Suswa to the load center, which is one of the major load center in Nairobi, through the river and Embakasi to the CBD. So in case in case of one of them is maybe for maintenance purposes, we can still evacuate all the power from Suswa through Isinya to Nairobi. Power is stable in the grid. Should any line maybe say have some maintenance issues, or we are scheduled the line for maintenance where the customers will not lose power, and therefore Isinya comes in to take where now the other line has been maybe taken for outage.
Finally, Iran's Vice President for Science and Technology, Soreno Satari, will lead a delegation of about 50 Iranians visiting Kenyans next week to scout for business. Iran's ambassador to Kenya, Jafar Bamaki, says that the delegation will showcase new technology ahead of the upcoming Kenya-Iran Business Forum.
Is going to head a delegation of almost 40 knowledge-based companies to Kenya to start the cooperation in this field and to start the center to have collaborations with Kenyan companies and Kenyan government.
The Iranian business leaders are from various fields, among them petrochemical, agriculture, health and energy.
Importing tea from Kenya, we have some negotiations with Kenyan authorities in this regard. and we have some delegations from Iran to come to Kenya in terms of the certificates that your team needs to have access to Iranian market.
And in the sports world 1500 meters champion Timothy Cheruiyot and world 3000 meters steeplechase champion Conseslus Kipruto are among 6 Kenyan athletes who received Olympic scholarships worth 2.6 million shillings from the National Olympic Committee of Kenya in a bid to strengthen their preparations for the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. Other athletes include Commonwealth Games 800 meters champion Wycliffe Kenyamal, world 800 meter bronze medalist Ferguson Rotich, Commonwealth Games 10,000 meters bronze medalist Rogers Kwemoe and Emily Cherotich. NOC is looking for avenues including scholarships to support athletes in order to prepare them well for the 2020 Tokyo Olympic Games set to be held between the 23rd of July and 8th August this year in Japan.
There are several disciplines. Kenya has been excelling in athletics, track and field events, but there are other disciplines that we don't send any participant. At the end of it all, when the national record medal standing is posted, you'll find countries like the US who did not win any of the athletics events, topping in the charts in the number of gold medals and other medals they have. It is because they have also invested in other disciplines that we are not participating.
Well, I see on the other side of the studio, Amfa is ready to bring us the analysis of the African Nations Championships. Well, today's game was interesting as since the championship started. Today's the game between Zambia and Tanzania, that was the first game where more than 2 goals were scored. Maybe, what does this mean? And maybe what can you expect moving forward?
Thank you very much, Jacky. Very interesting, like you rightly put it, the first time since the tournament started on Saturday, we've seen 2 goals scored. Very, very interesting, and we are hoping that this is going to be, you know, the floodgates opened and we are going to see many, many goals in football. What matters normally is how many goals are scored, and we've seen many, many goals scored, Jacky. I don't know which team you'd be rooting for, because we have the Brave Warriors of Namibia and the Silly National of Guinea coming up shortly. Who would you be rooting for?
Well, whoever wins, I rooted for you. Well, on that note, maybe we move now on to the weather updates, and then later on, I'll leave it to Amfa to move on with the program.
Thank you very much, Jacky, giving us updates of what's been happening both locally and across the borders from a news point of view. Very well appreciated. And I mean, with me here, I have a team of guests ready to take us through what's coming up. And of course, I will be joined by Daniel Wahome and John Agre, popularly known as Super John, to take us through what to expect from Jacky Wambiru, and of course, the sign language interpreter. We have Susan Mudho. Then up next will be coming Irene Muchuma Odim with the weather forecast. After that, I'll be back with the team to take you through the paces. Will it be the Brave Warriors of Namibia or the Silly National of Guinea to take us through and get to see goals? We'll have to wait and see. From us and the news team led by Jacky Wambiru and Susan in the sign language interpreter. Up next is Irene Muchuma Odim with the weather. Then up next, we'll be coming back with more around football. Enjoy.
Well,
good evening. Tuesday night it is, and the weatherman says in the next 24 hours there will be reduction of wet conditions over most parts of the country, save for a few areas over the western parts of the country, and this is around Lake Victoria, where there will be showers accompanied by thunderstorms. My name is Irene Mchuma Odim. Let's establish what will happen in the country tomorrow. Most parts of the country will experience sunny intervals, starting from the northern parts to the coastal strip, the capital, Meru and Nyeri, equally in Machakos. It will be cool and cloudy during the early morning hours with the possibility of light rains which will affect high ground areas. And for you over the Lake Basin region, it will mainly be sunny. There'll only be rains in a few areas in the county of Migori, but in the afternoon, there'll be showers accompanied by thunderstorms in Narok, Kisii, and Kericho. There'll be a bit of cloudiness in the western parts of the country, which will also affect Nakuru and Eldoret areas. The northern parts of the country will mainly be sunny. The coastal strip will continue to experience sunny intervals, and also in the capital and counties around the region, it will mainly be sunny. Unlike today, temperatures will tomorrow go down. In Mandera, we're looking highs at 36 degrees Celsius. The capital will experience highs of 26 degrees Celsius. And for you in Lamu, be prepared for highs of 33 degrees Celsius. How about across the borders and have a look at the international forecast? Good night. God bless.